And I'm going. Chapter 38. As for me, my reputation grew. Hadn't Mob's wish come true in the heart of a Wishtree? Didn't that mean anything was possible? Of course, as Squibbles often reminded me, I had nothing to do with it. This isn't a fairy tale, Red, he would say, but people are full of longing, and decade after decade the hopes came true. A blessing and a burden it had been, all those wishes for all those years. But everyone needs hope. At long last, I stopped talking. Once the words had spilled out, it was like trying to stop the wind. In the silence that followed, I felt as if the whole world was holding its breath. I had broken the rule. Stephen and Samar still stared open-mouthed at me. They looked as rooted to the ground as I was. Neither had uttered a sound while I told my story. The front door to Stephen's house opened. "Stephen?" called his father. "What the heck are you doing, young man?" Stephen leapt to his feet. Here I come, Dad. Night, Samar." "Night, Stephen," she said. Stephen dashed towards the porch, but stopped halfway. He spun around to look at me. "Thanks," he said in a quizzical voice, using the same tone he might use if Bongo had just made him pancakes. The door slammed behind him. Samara stood holding her blanket to her chest. "I know I must be dreaming," she said. She headed to her own porch and eased open the door. "I just wish," she added with a smile, "that I didn't have to wake up." Almost instantly, I regretted what I'd done. I'd broken the rule, the biggie. I'd deliberately spoken to people. And not just a few words. I'd spoken a river of words. I wasn't like that frog in the mailbox. I hadn't broken the rule accidentally. I'd broken the rule because I wanted to say something. I wanted to matter. I wanted to say something meaningful before I died. I did it for myself. After the shocked babies and their equally shocked parents were safely gone in their dens, I admitted my feelings to Bongo. I waited for her to yell at me. Bongo's good at yelling. Extremely good. You might even say she has a gift. "Why did I do it, Bongo?" I murmured. "Why?" She flew to home plate. She stroked my rough bark with my sleek head. "You did it, my wise old tree, because you have a story to tell." "It was foolish," I said. "I'm not supposed to be foolish." "Not so foolish," Bongo said. "Just hopeful. And everyone needs to hope, Red. Even wise old trees. So don't give up yet." Morning of emerald slowly came with heavy clouds. A light rain had fallen just before dawn, soothing my leaves, if not my mood. Oddly, the ground felt saturated. Spring was always muddy, of course, but this was unusual. It would make a mess for wishing day tomorrow. An early rising old gentleman with a bamboo cane approached. He paused to attach a small piece of blue paper to my lowest branch, using a bit of twine. He didn't say his wish aloud, so I couldn't tell what it was, but he had a satisfied smile as he stepped carefully through the soggy grass. No doubt I'd be seeing more wishes today. Many people came early to grab an easy spot to reach. This would probably be my last wishing day. How could it be that my first one, that long ago with Mauve, still seemed as fresh in my heart as the conversation with Stephen and Samar from the previous night? A car slowed to a crawl near the curb. I saw an arm, a blur, and then splat, something hit my trunk. Splat, splat, 2 more times, and the car roared off with a screech of tires. Bongo was the first to report my damage. "Raw eggs. I'm assuming that didn't hurt?" "Didn't feel a thing," I said. Fresh baked bread, hairy spiders, and Big U ventured out to inspect the situation. Big U slipped under the police tape and licked out one of the yolks sliding from my trunk. Raw, just the way I like 'em." "Hey, Big, share the wealth," Harry Spider snapped as she and Fresh joined her. Agnes watched from her perch. "I'd much prefer a squirming mouse pup," she said. "It's all yours, ladies." "What a nice surprise," Big U said between slurps. "This is not nice," Bongo said. "This is people at their worst." "Still," said Harry Spiders, licking her paws, "it'd be a shame to let perfectly good egg goo go to waste. One creature's nastiness is another creature's nibble." Big U get a satisfying burp, and the animals scrambled back to their homes. The door to Stephen's house opened. He walked over to me, saw the eggshells scattered like puzzle pieces, and scowled. Samar was next, a backpack slung over her shoulder and books clutched to her chest. She leapt over a muddy puddle and joined Stephen. "Jerks," he muttered, gesturing towards the egg remains. "Sorry, Samar." But Samar held up her hand. "Stephen," she said in a low voice, "last night." Stephen nodded ever so slightly, his eyes locked on me. "Last night," he repeated as if they were speaking in code. "The tree. The tree." "You heard what I heard?" Samar asked. "I did." Samar looked right at Stephen. "You heard the tree?" "I heard the tree." Samar gave a little nod. "So it was maybe a trick? Someone playing a joke on us?" Or maybe we were both sleepwalking at the same moment, Stephen suggested. He nodded as if trying to convince himself. Yeah, sleepwalking. Have you ever sleepwalked before? No, but there's a first time for everything. They stood there looking at me expectantly, willing me to speak. At least that's how it felt. I stayed silent. I'd said my piece and I regretted it. Stephen, Samara said softly, whatever happens, we can't tell a soul about this. Deal? Deal. Ever? Ever. Samara sighed. People would say we were crazy. And they're probably right, said Stephen. Samara jutted her chin at me. Tree, do you have anything to add? I didn't say a word. Samara and Stephen shared a smile. Figured it was worth a shot, she said. They headed off to school together. Stephen's father came out onto the porch. He was holding a cup of coffee. He caught sight of Stephen and Samara and frowned. A moment later, Samara's mother stepped out of the blue house, her keys jangling, a briefcase over her shoulder. She followed her neighbor's gaze. Both parents watched in silence until Stephen and Samara, walking side by side, disappeared from view. It's working now. I didn't have much time to mull over my mistake. We had a steady stream of visitors as the hours passed. Early wishmakers came throughout the day, a little girl who wanted 20 hamsters. The grocer down the street hoping for a summer of sweet peaches, the usual. The local reporter returned. She peeked at some of the new wishes hanging from the bowers and took a photo of the broken eggshells in my trunk. Sandy and Max came to remove the police tape surrounding me. Francesca joined them. Today she had Lewis and Clark on their thin leather leashes. Each cat was wearing an embarrassing sparkly harness. Francesca discussed the broken eggs with Sandy and Max, while Lewis and Clark woved around her legs. I've got a tree cutter coming out later to give me an estimate, Francesca said. So you're definitely cutting it down? Sandy asked, in what I like to think was a disappointed voice. Yep, no question. See that muck? All that water in that yard? Francesca pointed at the soggy lawn. Plumber told me this dang tree is plugging up some of the pipes. Least bit of rain in the yard turns into a giant mud puddle. Still, people are going to be sorry to see it go, Max said. He reached for Clark's leash and tried to unwrap Francesca. I know, it's a good old tree, but sentiment doesn't pay the plumber. Sandy grabbed Lewis while Francesca attempted to unknot herself from the leashes. What about the animals and birds that live in the tree? She asked. Oh, that's where I'm using the old noggin, Francesca said. Every year the possums and owls and such vacate the premises on wishing day. Strangest thing. It's like they know what's coming. She hopped over the web of leashes. Suppose they don't like being disturbed. In any case, I'm hoping the cutters will come late afternoon. Most of the wishes will be done by then. What will you do with all the wishes? Sandy asked. Put them in the trash when no one's looking. That's what I do every year. Whole thing's nonsense anyway. Max and Sandy looked at me sympathetically. I know. I don't have a sentimental bone in my body. Francesca paused to address the cats, who were yanking her in opposite directions. If dogs can do this, why is it such a challenge for you two? She turned her attention back to the police. But it's time. More than time. Well, we're going to swing by tomorrow, keep an eye on things. No lead on the person who carved that word, but with the eggs and people just generally riled up about the cut down. Sandy shrugged. Couldn't hurt to have us on eye. Thanks, Francesca said. Not necessary, but I appreciate it. Lewis and Clark caught a glimpse of Bongo and lunged for my tree. Whoa, you crazy felines, Francesca cried, reining them in. They hissed at Bongo. She spread her wings menacingly and let out the most ferocious caw. Lewis and Clark retreated for the safety of Francesca's arms. Once again, she was a tangled knot of leashes and cats. Sandy smiled. Maybe leave the cats home tomorrow, Francesca. They're going to cut it down. It seems like it's up to Samara and Stephen, if they find out about that, to share that story. So I wonder how they would do that. Oh, my heart. He's accepting it, though, that this could be it. And that's why he's going above and beyond to make sure that wish gets granted. Okay, so we'll read more. We'll probably finish the story next week. Bye.